Hi friends, welcome to Poughkeepsie Farm Project, where we grow over 200,000 pounds of produce a year for our community. Here at PFP, we like to celebrate how to cook healthy local fruits and veggies. I'm Kathryn, and today we're learning about indigenous cultures and the farming practices of those cultures, including one called a Three Sisters Garden. Sonia Joy is going to start us off with a breathing exercise.
Let's do an exercise together to focus ourselves. We'll start by closing our eyes or focusing on a point in front of us and imagining a warm bowl of soup in your hands. Imagine it's your favorite kind of soup and you can feel the warmth on your fingers. Now you're going to take a deep breath in and smell the aroma of the soup. And as you breathe out, you're going to blow your soup and cool it off. 2 more breaths. We're going to inhale this delicious smell of hot soup. And exhale, blow it off. One more time, take a deep breath in through your nose. And exhale, cool your soup off. Nice. Thanks for practicing with me. Open your eyes if you close them. And we're going to get started. So now we're going to learn about a delicious soup. But first, Kathryn is going to share with us about our special ingredient of the day.
So, have you ever eaten a pumpkin pie? What about carved a pumpkin? Then you're already familiar with winter squash. Today, we're learning about how winter squash became popular in the United States and around the world. Also, we're going to talk about why it was important to the indigenous people living here in New York. First, Larissa's going to start us off with our word of the day.
Hello everyone! The word of the day is indigenous. Indigenous refers to First Nations, Aboriginal, and Native people who depended on and took care of the land before colonial settlement. In Poughkeepsie, we have indigenous people that used to live here. There are 2 groups who lived here. At PFP, we give thanks to them for caring for the land that we grow our food on and for the wisdom our farmers gained from the indigenous people. If you don't live in Poughkeepsie, you can go onto this website called nativeland.ca to learn more about whose ancestral land you live on. Now back to Kathryn to teach us more about indigenous culture and foodways.
Our veggie of the day is squash. Squash is our December harvest of the month. The word squash came from the Narragansett people, who were the original inhabitants of the land that's now called Rhode Island. However, as we're going to find out, squash came from Central and South America and was brought here by indigenous people farming thousands of years ago. These indigenous people were farming experts. They knew which plants grew well together, which ones would nourish them and fill their bellies, and nourish their soil. They were also scientists, saving seeds to grow more plants every year and make those plants taste better and grow better in their own gardens. Seeds are very important. Most of the foods we eat come from a seed, and these seeds all have stories and lessons to share. One of those stories is of the Three Sisters, which is about corn, beans, and squash growing together in a garden. The Three Sisters crops were very important to the indigenous peoples in the Americas. This is because together they make a healthy, balanced meal, and they can be saved for the cold winters when there's not much else to eat. Winter squash has a thick outer skin called a rind. That helps it last a very long time. The corn and the beans can both be dried and then cooked later. Also, the Three Sisters, when planted together, help each other to grow. Indigenous people knew this. They planted them together, with the beans climbing up the tall corn stalks and the squash shading the soil with its big spiny leaves that would keep its sisters safe. They also knew the beans would help the corn and squash grow because it puts nutrients back into the soil. They passed this knowledge and seeds down generation to generation with the Three Sisters story. There are still indigenous farmers doing this important storytelling and seed keeping now. One of them is Rowen White, who's a seed keeper from the Mohawk community. Rowen is also an activist for indigenous seed sovereignty, meaning she makes sure communities have access to their ancestral seeds and foods by collecting, growing, and sharing with other communities of indigenous people. This is important because, like Rowen, a lot of indigenous people were forced to leave their ancestral lands and start eating processed food that's making them sick. Rowen is using seeds and stories to reconnect people to growing and eating traditional foods that are much healthier. Rowen shares that corn, beans, and squash are part of the Mohawk creation story. They view them as living relatives that nourish them and that they must nourish in return. She even works with a group of people here in the Hudson Valley of New York called Seedshed. They're growing seeds on ancestral Mohawk lands. So how can we get to know seeds better? Where did our seeds come from for corn, beans, and squash? Many of the varieties came from what's now known as Mexico. Look at how far they traveled to feed people on the other side of the world. As they spread to North America, the Three Sisters crops became important to not just indigenous people, but enslaved people and colonists who ended up growing a lot of new varieties of them that we see today. We're going to the garden with Katana to see a few of the varieties we're growing here at PFP.
Here at PFP, we have a whole garden for seed saving. Here are the corn plants that are drying out right now. We're going to use this corn to make popcorn. The pink popcorn is a special type of corn that only exists because seed keepers like Rowen save seeds every year. We also grew the other two sister crops this summer. The squash is ready to eat right now. This is also called a winter squash. And you can also eat these dried tiger eye beans too. When we cut open the squash, make sure you can try to find the seeds. Many people cook the squash seeds to eat as a snack. Can you think of ways that seeds are spread by nature? Maybe you can think of the wind blowing or a bird carrying it and then dropping it on the floor on an accident. Those are two examples of how seeds can spread by nature.
You can learn more about different types of squashes on our Harvest of the Month coloring sheet. They come in all different colors, shapes, and sizes. Then, see if you can find some of the seeds in your favorite foods, like the squash. Notice the differences in their shapes and sizes and how they look. Now we have that soup recipe for you. It's called Soup Joumou. Joumou is a squash that's very similar to a pumpkin. Soup Joumou is a recipe from Haiti in the Caribbean. They eat it to celebrate the day they won independence from France and were free to eat all the delicious foods that had been kept from them. Children will need an adult to help prepare this tasty recipe. There are a lot of other great cooking and gardening videos on the PFP YouTube. Make sure to take a look. Thanks for joining us at Poughkeepsie Farm Project. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the thumbs up. Until next time, take care of yourselves, your plants, and each other. Bye now.